and allow them to not forfeit their chances of salvation over something so small, so minute and trivial. And Abba Yah, at the end of our days, we ask that you have ordered our ways and steps before you in such a way that we're able to be found faultless before you, and allow us to be able to stand before your throne and see your face in peace. Abba Yah, these blessings we ask of you ever so humbly in that awesome, powerful, mighty Kodesh name of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, we pray. Hallelujah. Dear family, you may take your seats. This evening, I want to open this portion of our Shabbat observance reading from the 11th chapter of the book of Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 11. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Ruach of Yahweh shall rest upon him, and the Ruach of wisdom and understanding, and the Ruach of counsel and might, and the Ruach of knowledge and of the fear of Yahweh. And shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of Yahweh. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. And the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together. And a little child shall lead them, and the cow and the bear shall feed. Their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. And they shall neither hurt nor destroy in all my Kodesh mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. And in that day shall there be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. And to it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be full of kabod. And it shall come to pass in that day that Yahweh shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Mitzrayim, Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and shall gather together the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. And the envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Yehudah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehudah, and Yehudah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west, and they shall spoil them of the east together. And they shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And Yahweh shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in 7 streams, and make men go over on dry shod. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. Dear family, may Almighty Yahweh continually baruch us all to, in these latter days, continue to hear his word, and may he give us a mind to obey, so as to allow us to be present in that day that we just read about in Yeshaya 11, so as to be on hand for the restoration of Israel when we return home. Tonight, for those of you that's writing this down and taking notes, tonight's message, Passover, a memorial service like no other. And tonight, we're going to talk about the significance of the Pesach, or the Passover, not just as it relates to Israel's history and culture, but also we're going to talk about it from a standpoint that the whole world needs to recognize the significance of what Yahweh did for Israel on Abib the 14th. Because so often in society we get caught up in all of the different rituals and the customs of the world in this society today. You sit back now, you can see a person be murdered, or a person could die, whatever the circumstances under which they were put to death. And the people who come out, they have all kinds of customs and rituals, and the mourning process will last so long, and there'll be so many ceremonial things that take place. And all of these things will take place in the honor of people that could neither bring salvation to you, or neither did they even so much as regard seeking salvation. But you'll see all kinds of ceremonies take place. You'll see funeral processions miles long. You'll see repasts that last so long. Sometimes the repasts, even though it'll be a few hours, but it'll seem so long as if it lasted days and weeks. And in many instances, these will be in honor of people who didn't recognize Yahweh, or barely sought to honor Yahweh, and barely thought enough of them to at least try to obey. But they'll go on with all of these memorial services. But the memorial service that the world should stop and come to a screeching halt in observation of, they think absolutely nothing of. And then, on a more sadder note, long after many people have died, you'll still see customary practices in honor of their death, or the day in which people got killed. For example, you take the murder of America's president, John F. Kennedy, his assassination. For generations, people who weren't even alive at that time, school children have that date, November 22nd, 1963, ingrained into their memory because it was stamped in the textbooks as a part of the curriculum, to where people who couldn't even identify President Kennedy, or can't even identify or relate to any of his policies, or know nothing of him, they all know white America takes that day so serious, and they hold it in the utmost regard. And then even moving on beyond the day of JFK in November 22nd, 1963, we go to the other side of the spectrum. Even in our community, the black community, there are death dates of certain individuals that people bring things to a halt. People stop. You sit back, you can talk with people who were alive. They can tell you where they were the moment that they found out Martin Luther King was killed on April 4th, 1968. Others who can tell you what they were doing when Malcolm X was murdered in New York on February 21st, 1965. They can tell you all of the things that took place, who was at the funeral, who paid for what, who bought the suits and the clothes that the men were buried in, who did what at the ceremony that took place after the fact, and even coming forward in a more contemporary sense. Many young people today still pay honor and homage to two rappers that were just murdered, just Tupac and Biggie. People sit back, they'll celebrate, they'll pause on September the 6th, September the 13th, March 9th in honor of those two men. But when it comes to Abib the 14th, the day in which Yeshua HaMashiach was put to death, offered up as a living sacrifice for the sins of the world, people think absolutely nothing of it. But yet, all of the people that I named, and even more, they have all kinds of memorial services years after the people have been murdered, but they still stop and celebrate. They'll still go out to the Marathon store out in California where Nipsey Hussle was murdered, and they'll still put candles down at the spot where he was killed almost 2 years after his murder. And so many other places, they'll light candles, throw down teddy bears and liquor bottles. They'll get the person's favorite drink in some instances and just line up the spot where the person was murdered with that person's favorite alcoholic beverage. But yet, that which Yeshua HaMashiach, his sacrifice, the world thinks absolutely nothing of it. The beverage that Almighty Yahweh commanded us to have on hand for the Pesach, the world thinks absolutely nothing of that. All of the things that Yahweh required of us as his people to keep the Pesach, the rest of the world, they look at it, they mock it. While unbeknownst to them, the sacrifice wasn't just made for Israel, but the sacrifice was made so that all they who believe on Yeshua HaMashiach would have the right to life and have it more abundantly. But the world laughs at those things. And on a more interesting note, what makes the Pesach or the Passover memorial like none other, this was a memorial that was, on one hand, it was historic. On another hand, it was futuristic, while simultaneously being symbolic at the same time. All of the feast days, as we stressed on numerous occasions, point to Almighty Yahweh's kingdom. The historical aspect of the Passover, America celebrates July 4th, Independence Day. They fought with the British and they They overcame their captivity, I guess you could say captivity, to the mother country. They had their little fight, their little temper tantrum on their mother. They claimed their independence. They threw their hands up. They light firecrackers and fireworks on July 4th. All kinds of things go on sale in the stores. Crabs is cheap. Alcohol is in abundance. Fireworks is sold everywhere, even in places where they're usually illegal. But hey, look, get on out here. You celebrate our independence. You go. You do this. But Israel's Independence Day, the day in which they were delivered from their captive, the greatest superpower in the earth at that time, Yahweh himself overthrew their government. The white folks in D.C. that went and stormed the Capitol on January the 6th of this year, they thought they were going to overthrow the government, but they haven't seen any anarchy. They haven't seen any overthrow like that which Yahweh wrought for the people of Israel on Abib the 14th, gave them freedom, delivered them from their oppressor, and established them as a nation that night. Oh, and he even gave them reparations. Even gave them reparations, told them that they would spoil their neighbors, the Egyptians. You think America cutting the stimulus checks now, trying to give you money every time you turn around, this amount to this group, that amount to that group. Oh, America ain't doled out reparations yet. Because when Yahweh comes to deliver his people and he overthrows modern day Babylon, oh, you going to see some reparations handed out in that day. And I don't even mean in just a monetary sense. I'm going further than that. But this Pesach, and what makes this a memorial like any other, this is a memorial like none other because this memorial, this night resulted as a result of Almighty Yahweh hearing the groans and the complaints and the moaning, the sighs and the petitions of his people. And Yahweh having been fed up with the oppression of his people, he moved on their behalf that night. Let's go to the book of Exodus. If you got bookmarks in your scripture, what have you, to hold your place, you can put a bookmark in the book of Exodus. We're going to jump around a little bit this evening, but we're going to come back and forth to Exodus. But we're going to start off initially in Exodus chapter 3. I'm starting Exodus 3. I'm going to start here at verse 1. Then Moshe kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and he came to the mountain of Yahweh, even unto Horeb. And the Malach, or the angel of Yahweh, appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, Now I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said unto him, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, but put off your shoes from off your feet. In other words, hey, hold up. Don't come so close. Take your shoes off. Remove your shoes. Put off your shoes from your feet, for the place whereon you stand is Kodesh ground. And moreover he said, I am Yahweh. I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob. And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto him, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Mizraim, or Egypt. And I've heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And that's serious. And the Most High sees your plight. All kinds of atrocities, you suffering all kinds of hardships as a people, you feeling like there's no end to it. But as a people, Yahweh calls out from among you one of your brethren, pulls him up, pulls him to himself, has a conversation with him, introduces himself to him by name, then lets him know even further. If you will, he goes through the family Rolodex, or he does a roll call, lets him know, introduces himself to him by name, and then tells him also, let him know, I'm familiar with your fathers, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers. Let him know, I know you. Then he goes on further and let him know, I see the plight of your people. I see what you all going through. And I'm come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a tub land, and a large land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, all of those nations, all of those filthy, idolatrous nations. Yahweh was moving them out. Now you see the heathens, they'll do this today. They'll come into the community. They'll let us get into a community that let you sit back, tear the community up, pull it down, depreciate the property value and everything. And they'll let you go for years and years. But then when you get so tired of the conditions of the community that you tore down, and you start to flee in opposite direction, then they'll come along. They'll begin to buy the properties for dirt cheap, fix them up, gentrify it as they call it. But then they'll come on back, they'll fix the neighborhoods up, they'll beautify them, and they'll put in the people who they deem to be fitting for the area. But they'll go up on the real estate and they'll raise the price. This is what Yahweh was doing with those nations. All of those precious resources, all of those minerals in that land that Yahweh gave unto his people, Yisrael. The inhabitants there at that time, Yahweh had to move them on out so that he could place his people there. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come unto me, and I've also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I'll send you unto Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And this is what makes this memorial, Pesach, Passover. This is what makes this memorial a memorial like no other. Because for all of the different people that have died, different people who sacrificed their lives, whether individual or a nation that was wiped out or slaughtered, none of those sacrifices or those people losing their lives tantamount to what Yeshua did as he sacrificed himself for Israel. And no sacrifice was nowhere near as significant as that which Almighty Yahweh did when he delivered the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. He went at the greatest nation on the earth at that time, struck at all the firstborn in that night. After having hit them with other plagues in the process that led up to this, then the plagues gotten so heavy with the death of the firstborn, the Egyptians looked up. Look, this is it. All right, cool. Y'all been coming to us. You've been asking to be let go. You've been slacking on your work. You've been half-handedly doing your work. You're talking about you want to go away 3 days journey into the wilderness. All this stuff happened. Now we done lost children. All right, go. Get out. And Pharaoh, who at one point said that he regarded not Yahweh, and asked Moshe, who is this Yahweh? No, not Yahweh. But after the death of that firstborn, suddenly it was, get out, go, 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 leave right now. And bless me also. But Yahweh moved against that nation, took their slaves, took their Ibed, took their servants from them, and established them. Scripture says, humble yourself in the sight of Yahweh, and he will lift you up. Israel was truly humbled down in the ancient Egypt. Israel was extremely humbled in them conditions of oppression. And Almighty Yahweh saw their humility, the humiliation that they were enduring. He lifted them up after he tore down ancient Egypt and established his people. That's what makes this a memorial like none other. Because this memorial pointed to the life of Yeshua HaMashiach, who that lamb that Israel sacrificed on Abib the 14th in ancient Egypt, that lamb was sacrificed. It was symbolic of the sacrifice that Yeshua would later come and make as well. And that sacrifice pointed to the kingdom to come. And we go on a little bit further down here in Exodus chapter 3. And Moshe said unto Yahweh, well, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, certainly I'll be with you, and this shall be a token unto you that I've sent you. When you brought forth the people of Egypt, you shall serve Yahweh upon this mountain. And Moshe said unto Yahweh, for behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, the Elohim of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say unto me, well, what's his name? What shall I say unto them? And Yahweh said unto them, I am that I am. Hey, Yeshaya. And he said, thus shall you say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And Yahweh said moreover unto Moshe, Thus shall you say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob has sent me unto you. This is my name. Not names, or this is one of my names, or this is one of my aliases, or you can call me this. But I go by that also. He didn't say any of that. He said, this is my name, singular, forever, or olam. None of that old, well, he got many names that the world will have you to believe today, but none of that foolishness that the falsehood of the world propagates to you. He told Moshe what his name was, and he said, this is my name forever. There's no changing it, no dissolution of it, no removal of it from your tongue. No. He said, this is it forever, even after the translators sought to hide it and keep it from you. His name does not change. And this is my memorial unto all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared unto me, saying, I've surely visited you, and I've seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I've said, I will bring you out of the affliction of Egypt, unto the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to your voice, and they shall come, and you shall come, and the elders of Israel unto the king of Egypt. And you shall say unto him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey unto the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim. And I'm sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go. No, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt. See, Yahweh foretelling them, Yahweh let them know, I'm going to send you to this man. I'm going to send you along with the elders to tell this man that I spoke to you to let you all go. And I know for a fact he's going to buck, he's going to rebel. He's not going to let you go, not even by a mighty hand. But it took the hand of the Almighty to let them, force the man to let him go. He says, and I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all of my wonders, which I will do in the midst of them. And after that will he let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourns in her house, jewels of silver, and jewels of gold, and raiment. And you shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. See, all of that labor that the Egyptians got from the children of Israel, all of that free, skilled labor, all of the chaos and all of the carnage that they brought to the children of Israel, who just originally went to sojourn in the land of strangers. But the Egyptians, looking up and seeing how the children of Israel multiplied among them, got jealous, got envious, saw the people as a threat, started to plot against them, how to overthrow them, how to take them into captivity. Then the ultimate jealousy set in when they began to work to wipe them out of existence. See, this is why we celebrate the Pesach. This is why so much emphasis is put upon this Passover. Because as I stated earlier, it's historic, but yet it's futuristically symbolic also. Symbolic of the deliverance that is soon to come for you and I today under all of these oppressive regimes of the world. Not just the United States, not just the United Kingdom, not just Russia, not just Czechoslovakia, not just Madagascar, not just Australia and all of the other places throughout the world where there are unrighteous, oppressive regimes in power, trampling upon the righteous and the just and making a mockery of them. But no, this Pesach is symbolic of Almighty Yahweh delivering you and I from all of these things, and going even further than deliverance from oppressive physical regimes. Almighty Yahweh is even going to deliver us from oppressive spiritual conditions that hover above this earth, that hold down nations, continents, regions, cities, governments, people, families, neighborhoods, and individuals. All of that deliverance and redemption is tied to our keeping of the Pesach. And let's jump from the 3rd chapter of Exodus. Let's move forward a little bit. Let's go to Exodus chapter 3. Achmakiah, Shabbat Shalom to you, beloved. Shabbat Shalom. Pleasure to have you. And let's go here to the book of Exodus, chapter 6. I'm going to start at the first verse. Then Yahweh says unto Moshe, now shall you see what I do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, and says unto him, I am Yahweh, and I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob. By my name Yahweh, was I not known unto them? Now this is not saying, oh, that I appeared unto them, but I wasn't known unto them by Yahweh. This here is a question. He's asking them now. In other words, I appeared unto them. And by my name Yahweh, wasn't I known unto them? See, many people want to take that and spin it around and make it as if, oh no, well, what was he before then? If he wasn't known unto them by the name Yahweh, then what was he before? Real slick trick that Shaitan plays with the semantics and punctuation. And he says also, and I've established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. See how merciful Almighty Yahweh is, or how full of conceit Yahweh is. Yahweh made the covenant with our forefathers and promised them the land. Though they did not live to see it, Yahweh didn't break the contract. You know how society is today, where you could enter into an agreement with somebody and the agreement stands as long as you're alive. But the moment you die, even though you intend to pass it on to your progeny behind you or leave it to your children and your grandchildren, the other party, oh, no, that's it. No, that's it. It was a lifetime warranty, but for your life. You dead and gone, that's it. It don't matter if you bought the house, you passed it on to this. Nope, your name is on it. That's it. Get them other folks out of there. No, Yahweh didn't operate like that. Yahweh extended the promise unto our forefathers. They didn't get to inherit that land, but their children, they got to inherit the land. They got to enjoy it. And they even got to rebel in it. They got to defy Yahweh in the land. They got to disobey Yahweh in the land. And ultimately, they got thrust out of the land and scattered to the four winds of the earth. But being the awesome, mighty Elohim that he is, full of a seed and forgiveness, Yahweh even promised their children that if they obeyed him and turned unto him, he would return them unto the land of their forefathers. That's what makes this Pesach so special and so significant, because it points to that kingdom to come, as do all the other feasts. But it's this Pesach that sets in motion all of the feasts of Yahweh's calendar year. And I've also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and have remembered my covenant. And that's serious. What other nation you got on the planet that went through suffering, that went through hardships, that can honestly say that the Most High heard their groanings, heard their petitions, and their cries against their oppressor, and moved on their behalf? What other nation could say it? Them bastards that run that 10 or 11 year game where they psychologically hold the world hostage with that Holocaust, them bastards that run that nonsense and make the whole world stand in deference to, you can't say that. These covenants, these promises wasn't extended unto them. They running around now playing the greatest game of identity theft that the world has ever known. And even with their little 10 years or 11 years being slaughtered, they still can't say Yahweh moved on their behalf like he moved on the behalf of the true children of Israel. Yahweh ain't wrought no plagues in Germany or in Auschwitz or other places where put the lights out, 3 days of complete darkness. Yahweh didn't turn the waters there into blood. Yahweh didn't go over into Berlin and smite Berlin with hail and locusts. He didn't do that. He didn't do that on their behalf. The Buddhists, the others, though all of those different people that were brought through all kinds of torturous ordeals in this earth, they can't say it. But Yahweh personally told his servant that he heard the groans of his people Israel. Imagine that. You think our ancestors went through something here in the 16, 17, and 1800s? You think they went through something? And just believe, rest assured, them being the direct descendants of the true children of Israel, even their groanings didn't go unheard. They didn't go unanswered. It's just a long time coming for their redemption and the redemption of their children and grandchildren, other descendants. It's a long time coming. But as Yahweh allows us to wake up and come to the knowledge of who we are, we get that much closer to our redemption. And this Pesach is a critical part of that redemption. Going on further, it says, wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. He didn't do that to the Chinamen here when they were in America and they were being whipped and forced into all of those internment camps, and they were being beat into subjugation and made to build those railroads. He didn't do that for them. Yahweh didn't go into Auschwitz or Berlin or those other places and do that for them. But he wrought true judgment upon the Egyptians on the behalf of his people, the children of Israel. And he goes on further and says, I'll take you to me for a people, and I will be to you an Elohim. And you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, which brings you out from the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you in unto a land concerning the which I did swear to give it unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And I'll give it to you for a heritage, for I am Yahweh. And Yahweh kept that promise on Abib the 14th. He overthrew the Egyptians, washed them away in the sea, struck at their firstborn, turned the water of the nations unto blood, smote them with flies and locusts and all sorts of plagues, struck at the most powerful gods in Egypt on the behalf of his people to assert his power and his authority so that he may receive praise and the power and the recognition over Pharaoh. And he did it on the behalf of his people. And he kept his word on Abib the 14th. And people look at this memorial service, they don't think nothing of it. But yet every time a celebrity passes away, you'll see people turn to the news. They want to turn to the internet. They want to see the memorial service to this person or that person. And they'll sit back no matter how long the memorial service is, no matter how many orators and speakers they got, no matter how many preachers and cardinals and bishops and imams and whatever else they got on hand. People sit and watch. People sit back and talk. Oh, did you see the funeral service of Nipsey Hussle? They had this, that, and the other, and so spoke, and this, that, and the other, and so. And Minister Farrakhan was up there, and such was up there, and Lil Wayne's son was up there, and Lord London, and so spoke, and I think I even spoke, but I forgot what I said. Now, I'm being facetious now, but just to convey to you the level of attention which people will pay to worldly memorial services. They'll sit back, they'll watch the people's clothes, they'll watch, see who did the makeup, who did the hair. Oh man, Kobe Bryant had that service at the Staples Center, and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And there was ever so many thousands of people in there, and Aretha Franklin, and they had this, that, and the other for so and such and such. And Michael Jackson's service ran for ever so many hours, and you can look up and see so and so a service, and it's streaming on Tidal or streaming on Apple Music, or they had the tickets for this one's service, and they sold out in an hour. But yet the ultimate memorial service, the greatest memorial service the world has ever known, the world thinks absolutely nothing of it. And that's the Pesach. This memorial service recognizes Israel's deliverance from oppression in ancient Egypt. This memorial service highlights the sacrifice made by Yeshua HaMashiach, not just for Israel and their sins, but for the sins of all the world, so that he in his life will serve as an example that man can, proper application, keep Yahweh's commandments. But yet the world thinks absolutely nothing of that. And this memorial service also points to the future deliverance of Almighty Yahweh's people from all of the oppressive regimes and conditions that hold us down in this earth today. But we think absolutely nothing of it. But yet, a local hustler or a local killer can be murdered. And you'll see people flock to the funeral homes for the viewings. They'll set it up in a way where they'll have a specified time for the family to view and a specified time for the general public to view. And the general public will be so overwhelmed, supposedly, Or they'll give the impression that it's overwhelming love, but in all actuality, it ultimately boils down to just wanting to be nosy. But you'll see the general public just so overwrought with nosiness and inquisitiveness that they'll try to spill over into the family viewing, and they want to be a part of every aspect of the memorial service. And you'll see families fight to put obituaries together. Families will fight over the possessions and the collectible items that the deceased may have had on hand. They'll fight over life insurance policies and wills and all of these different things that the people fight over concerning memorial services of people who live wickedly and sinfully in the world. But won't nobody fight to be in attendance for the ultimate memorial service, which is the Pesach, Abib the 14th. People don't fight for that though. You see people in many instances, they'll forget the date, or they'll argue with you concerning the date and when it's coming around, or they'll have 1,000,001 questions about what's going on, and they'll want special provisions made for them, or they'll want all kinds of excuses made for why they couldn't be there. And then on the other side of the spectrum, just as people die in the world today, whether by gun violence or in auto accidents or drug overdoses or whatever the case may be, just as people die under those circumstances, and they'll have loved ones and relatives who ain't seen them in years or ain't spoke to them in forever and owe them money and deliberately ducked them out so they didn't have to pay back the debt. But those same loved ones run to that funeral, and they'll be the ones crying the loudest. They'll be the ones at the casket taking the longest to view the body, holding up everybody. The service could be set to start at a specified time. The cousin or the aunt that last cursed the deceased out be the ones that go, but some of your last words, man, but I hope you die. I wish you were dead. But they'll forget all of that for the sake of showing up at the memorial service. And I highlight that to show that we as Israel, we do that sometimes too. We treat Almighty Yahweh any type of way in which we can imagine. We skip out on the Shabbats, as the book of Lamentations says. None doth come to the solemn assemblies. We do all sorts of things. We keep the Shabbat how we want to keep it. We'll keep half of it. We'll keep a segment of it. We'll keep the Shabbat every other 3 Shabbats. We'll show up on different feast days. We'll treat the feast days like the little girls on the playground do double dutch and hopscotch. All right, cool. I'm keeping trumpets. Oh, we can't eat on atonement. All right, cool. I'm gonna skip that one because I gotta fill this belly. But I'm gonna be back in here for first great day of tabernacles. Hey, oh, here I go, y'all. Last great day. No, they got overtime on the job. I'm gonna skip that one. Y'all ain't gonna see me no more. Oh, Passover coming. Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, give me some lamb. Break the mouths up. Yeah, pour me a nice old glass of grape juice. Make sure it's cold. Get it? But you ain't seen them in who knows how long. But yet they'll show up that night. And that's not how we're supposed to carry out Almighty Yahweh's feast. But yet, all the other practices of the world, all the other memorials, we'll pay homage to those things. We'll stand in deference to all of those things. We'll mourn when they mourn. We'll honor what they honor. We'll respect what they respect. But then when it comes to the thing of Almighty Yahweh, suddenly we get lax. Suddenly we sit down and we take a seat. But that's not the way things are supposed to go. This memorial is symbolic of Almighty Yahweh fighting the greatest nation on the earth on the behalf of the greatest people on the earth. But in many instances, you can't get those people today to recognize just how great they are. And you definitely can't get them to recognize just how great the I am that moved on their behalf is, was, and forever will be. Let me turn everybody's attention momentarily from the book of Exodus. I want to read from the book of Yeshua, give you some insight into what the children of Israel were grappling with in the time frame leading up to them coming out of Egypt, in the decades, in the years before their Exodus. I want to read here briefly from the book of Yeshua, chapter 67. For those of you that are at home that may have it, you can feel free to read along. If not, hey, that's awesome too. But I want to read something into the record, give you an idea of what Israel was dealing with as far as the mindset of their oppressors. Give me 1 second, everybody. Yeah, sure. 67. I'm going to start here at verse 11. And in the 130th year of Israel's going down to Egypt, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne and lifted up his eyes, and he saw an old man standing before him. And there were scales in the hand of the old man, such scales as are used by the merchants. And the old man took the scales, and he hung the scales before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Egypt, and all of its nobles, and its great men, and he tied them together, and he put them on one scale. And he took a milk kid and he put it on the other scale. And the kid preponderated over all. Now, what does preponderated mean, you might ask? The kid, or that small lamb, took precedence, exercised greater importance, authority, dominion, and significance over everything else that was on the other side of that scale. Now, keep in mind, there's a small lamb on one side of the scale, but you got all of the nobles, all of the princes, all of the rulers, and Pharaoh himself, and all of the authority in Egypt on one side of the scale. But you got this kid, this baby lamb, on the other side that took precedent and outweighed it all. And this is what Pharaoh saw in a dream. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponderate over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. But Pharaoh rose up early in the morning, and he called all his servants, and he relayed to them the dream. And the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all his wise men, interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam, the son of Beor, the same Balaam who could not curse that which Yahweh had blessed before in another place. This same Balaam, the son of Beor, answered the king and says unto him, this means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. For a son will be born to Israel, who will destroy all of Egypt and its inhabitants, and bring forth the Israelites from Egypt with a mighty hand. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel and their expectation before this evil arise against Israel, against Egypt. See the type of mindset? Now the king was plagued in a dream. Yahweh allowed this king to have this dream. Yahweh was the old man in the dream with the scales, with all of the nobles of Egypt on one side of the scale, and this kid on the other that preponderated over all of the nobility and all of the rulership in Egypt. Balaam had the interpretation straight out the gate and told him, look, hey, this is a great evil. You better get on top of this right now, because this is going to overthrow you and your whole nation. You better get on top of it and cut this off from the children of Israel, destroy their hope and their expectation. This is what makes the Pesach a memorial like none other. Because even the rulers, your enemies, even they knew that their time of oppressing you would eventually end. Like milk, eventually it has an expiration date. And don't you spend 1 second thinking that the time frame in which your current rulers and oppressors have now, don't you spend 1 second thinking they're going to get eons and millenniums to continue ruling you and I in wickedness. Even they too have an expiration date that is fast approaching. That's why they fight like mad now to destroy you and I in every way, shape, and form possible. But going on further. And the king said unto Balaam, and what shall we do unto Israel? Surely after a certain manner did we at first counsel against him, and could not prevail against him. Now therefore give you also advice against them, by which we may prevail over them. And Balaam answered the king, saying, send now and call your 2 counselors, and we'll see what their advice is upon this matter. And afterward your servant will speak. And the king sent, and he called his 2 counselors, Ruel the Midianite. Now Ruel the Midianite, that's Moshe's father-in-law, otherwise known as Jethro, the priest of Midian. Now he goes and he calls him, and Eob the Uzite. And they came and sat before the king. And the king says to them, behold, you both have heard the dream which I have dreamed, and the interpretation thereof. Now therefore give counsel, and know and see what is to be done to the children of Israel, whereby we may prevail against them, before their evil shall spring up against us. Now you see how the mind of the wicked work? Now they got you in captivity. They oppressing you. They building structures. They got your fathers and your forefathers building up their land and their regions, giving them excessive quotas and telling them, if you don't meet this quota, we're going to put your baby in the wall. Those type of oppressive conditions. And that's what people were under. But then you have a dream as the ruler about their deliverance and your overthrow. But them being delivered from under your oppression. Now that's evil. See how the mind of the wicked works? You see how Shaitan jumps in a person and makes their mind function and operate? Now they get out from under your oppressive thumb. But them doing so is evil. But what you doing to them, that's all right. That's all right. And the fact that Almighty Yahweh delivered ancient Israel from under such an oppressive regime is why this memorial is so special. And Ruel the Midianite answered the king and said, May the king live. May the king live forever. If it seem good to the king, let him desist from the Hebrews and leave them, and let him not stretch forth his hand against them. For these are they whom Yahweh did choose in the days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, and the kings of the earth, who it is there that stretch hand against them, they were not avenged. See now, the rulers sitting back now, they talking about you, they discussing you now, but then they giving a breakdown of the history of how Yahweh fought on the behalf of the patriarchs of old and how he fought on the behalf of his people. And Jethro serving as an intercessor, if you will, on the behalf of Israel, letting Pharaoh know, hey, look, hey, pump your brakes. Whatever you thinking of doing, be cool, chill. They're Elohim, not to be played with, and he does not play about them. Then he goes on further. Surely, you know that when Abraham went down to Egypt, Pharaoh, the former king of Egypt, saw Sarah, his wife, and took her for a wife, because Abraham said, she is my sister, for he was afraid lest the men of Egypt should slay him on account of his wife. And when the king of Egypt had taken Sarah, then Yahweh smote him and his household with heavy plagues until he restored unto Abraham his wife Sarah. Then was he healed. And Abimelech, the Gerite, the king of the Philistines, Yahweh punished him on the account of Sarah, the wife of Abraham, in stopping up every womb from man to beast. Now that's serious. Now you lusting after the woman, you're going to take the woman to yourself. But then Yahweh strike out at the nation and makes all the womb of everything in the nation, among man and beast, makes it all barren as a result of this man's lustful, sinful desire to defile one of the daughters of Yahweh. And you tell me this Passover ain't a special service that should be recognized and kept throughout not just all of Israel, but to be honored throughout the world. And oh, believe me, one day it will. Scripture says Yahweh will magnify his law and will make it honorable. And when Elohim came to Abimelech, and when Yahweh came unto Abimelech in the dream of night, and terrified him in order that he might restore to Abraham Sarah, whom he had taken. And afterward all the people of Gerar was punished on the account of Sarah. And Abraham prayed to his Elohim for them, and he was entreated of him, and he was healed for them. Can you imagine that? You see the type of rapport one man had, to where as a result of his mistreatment and the disrespect of his wife, you see how Yahweh moved against an entire nation? And the whole nation couldn't be healed, couldn't be delivered from Yahweh's judgment until that one man, that servant of Yahweh, prayed on their behalf. And just look at that. Yahweh loved the whole nation with that same magnitude. So much so that he came back and he smote Egypt in the same manner on the behalf of the whole nation of Israel and brought them out. And Abimelech feared all this evil that came upon him and his people, and returned to Abraham his wife, and gave him with her many gifts. And he did so also to Isaac when he had driven him from Gerar. And Yahweh had done wondrous things to him, that all the water courses of Gerar were dried up, and their productive trees did not bring forth until Abimelech and Ahuzaz, one of his friends, and Pekol, the captain of his host, went to him, and they bent and bowed down before him unto the ground. And they requested of him that he supplicate for them. And he prayed to Yahweh for them, and Yahweh was entreated of him, and he healed them. And Jacob also, The plain man was delivered through his integrity from the hand of his brother Esau, and the hand of Laban the Syrian, his mother's brother, who had sought his life, and likewise from the hand of all the kings of Canaan, who would come together against him and his children to destroy them. And Yahweh delivered them out of their hands, that they turned upon them and smote them. For who had ever stretched forth his hand against them with impunity? Surely Pharaoh, the former, your father's father, raised Joseph, the son of Jacob, above all the princes of the land of Egypt, when he saw his wisdom, for through his wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land from famine. After which he ordered Jacob and his children to come down to Egypt, in order that through their virtue the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from famine. Now therefore, if it seem good in your eyes, or if it seem tough in your eyes, cease from destroying the children of Israel. But if it be not your will that they should dwell in Egypt, then send them forth from here, that they may go to the land of Canaan, the land where their ancestors sojourned. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, he was angry with him, so that he rose with shame from the king's presence and went to Midian, his land, and he took Joseph's stick with him. Now that's a man telling you, what you thinking of doing to these people, don't do it. Their Elohim is not to be played with. Their Elohim continually moves on their behalf. You don't want the wrath of their Elohim upon you. So whatever you're going to do, stop, pump your brakes. Pharaoh gets mad, get pissed off with the man, angry with him, because the man wouldn't give the green light or give him any counsel as far as how to eliminate the people of Israel. And the king said to Eob the Uthite, what sayest thou? What's your advice respecting the Hebrews? So Eob said to the king, behold, all the inhabitants of the land are in your power. Let the king do as it seems good in your eyes. And when the king said unto Balaam, so what say ye, Balaam? Speak your word, that we may hear it. And Balaam said to the king, of all that the king has counseled against the Hebrews, will they be delivered? And the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if you think to lessen them by a flaming fire, you can't prevail over them. For surely their Elohim delivered Abraham, their father, from Ur of the Chaldeans. And if you think to destroy them with a sword, surely Isaac, their father, was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. See, Deacon asked a question in his message a few weeks ago. He asked Israel, do you know how much power you have? And I asked that same question. Do you realize the power that you have with the Most High as you strive in righteousness, as you strive to do His will, as you pray unto Him, as you cry out unto Him, and you make your petitions unto Him for the things in which you need, as you pray for houses, shelter, food, clothing, cars, all of those different things of the world, as you pray for those things and as you pray for the salvation of your soul, Israel, don't forget to pray for the overthrow of your enemies. Those that fight against you, pray that Almighty Yahweh would fight against them. Those who lift up weapons against you, those who set traps for you, pray and ask Almighty Yahweh to allow those same weapons to destroy those who intend to use them on you. The same traps that they seek to set for you, pray and ask Almighty Yahweh to let your adversaries fall into their own traps. Not just them now, but for generations to come. See, you know how much power you have? We're reading plenty of examples. Now, these are wicked men, but they're counseling an even more wicked ruler. Hey, look, all right now, we know you despise them, we know you hate them, but be cool. Their Elohim does not play about them. You don't want that type of wrath and retribution upon your nation. Chill, pump your brakes. And if with hard and rigorous labor you think to lessen them, you will not prevail even in this. For their father Jacob served Laban in all manner of hard work and prospered. So you think you're going to work them to death? Nah, it's in their blood. He's letting them know so many words. There's nothing you can do to this people. As long as their Elohim is on their side, or is on their side, everything you think to do unto them, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably. And if it please the king, let him order all their children. And it goes on further. Sorry, I skipped the verse. It says, now therefore, O king, hear my words. For this is the counsel which is counseled against them, by which you will prevail over them, and from which they should not depart. If it please the king, let him order all their children which shall be born from this day forward to be thrown into the water. For by this can you wipe away their name. For none of them, nor of their fathers were tried in this manner. Now, the same mouth that rattled off all of Israel's history with Almighty Yahweh, the same mouth that broke down for Pharaoh how Almighty Yahweh moved on so many occasions on the behalf of his people. Now, suddenly you get to looking at it, suddenly you think you found a loophole. As if it wasn't their relatives whom Almighty Yahweh allowed to emerge from the ark after the flood. But this is the mindset of Shaitan. Going further, for none of their fathers were tried in this manner. And the king heard the words of Balaam, and the thing pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued, and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, saying, every male child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. So long before they were here in the United States, in the South, in Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and other places using us as gator bait, long before those chapters and pages in our history, nations were plotting against us to abuse us and to drown us in the water. And Pharaoh called unto all his servants, saying, go now and seek throughout the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you shall let live. And when the children of Israel heard this thing which Pharaoh had commanded to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their husbands, they went to the field to bring forth there. And they brought forth in the field, and they left their children upon the field, and they returned home. See, that's sad. See how sad a fate we had at that time. You see the condition we were under, the mandate given, an executive order. I'm going to use today's terminology, an executive order. All right, any males born to those Hebrews, you take them males, you throw them boys in the water. The daughters, you go in, you let them live. And of course, you know why they let the daughters live. Filthy, lascivious bastards that they were. They wanted the daughters to live for their own selfish reasons. But the males who posed a threat, physically as well as genetically, I'll give it up, throw them in the water. So much so that the parents in Israel had to go and deliver their babies in the field, and then had to leave the babies there. But this is how full of Hasid, and this is Yahweh's loving kindness as we read further into the chapter here that he bestowed even unto them babies. And they went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field, and they left their children upon the field, and they returned home. And Yahweh had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them. He sent one of his ministering angels, which are in Hashemayim, to wash each child in water, and to anoint, and to swathe it, and to put in its hands 2 smooth stones, from one of which it sucked milk, and from the other honey. Now that's serious. El Shaddai, Yahweh will provide. Tell me we don't serve an awesome Elohim, and you tell me that our Pesach, the celebration of Passover, you tell me this ain't a memorial like no other? I don't care who died in this earth. I don't care how great or how magnanimous the world may think they were. The sacrifice that they made in giving up their life, it pales in comparison to Yeshua HaMashiach. All of the stories of deliverance and redemption, and one nation fighting to get out from under another in this earth, America fighting to establish itself against Britain, other places, all of those different stories, they don't hold a candle to the story of Israel's deliverance from ancient Egypt. Going on further, they say he gave the babies a ministering angel to bathe the baby, to clean the baby, and to wrap it, and to swathe it. Then he gave it 2 stones. One, the stone produced milk, and another stone produced honey to nourish the child. See why Shaitan came at Yeshua? Take these stones, commanded these stones be turned to bread. Shaitan knows the capability that Yahweh has, as well as the power and the type of capability that Yahweh will bestow upon his people. But they don't want you to know that, because the more they keep you from knowing that, the more you will be less inclined to tap into the greatest energetic source in this universe, which is Almighty Yahweh. People plug their phones into the chargers and the outlets and things of that nature. People plug up speakers and things of that nature to generate sound and microphones and guitars and so forth. People cut on lights and generate electrical currents and everything. But just imagine if you tap into Almighty Yahweh in righteousness and sincerity. Just imagine what you can generate in this earth as a nation. if you turn to him and call upon him and ask him for whatever you need in the name of his son, Yeshua HaMashiach. You just imagine what you can generate in this earth. And going further, and he says, from one it sucked honey, and from one it sucked milk, and he caused its hair to grow to its knees, by which it may cover itself, to comfort it, and to cleave to it, through his compassion for it. And when Yahweh had compassion over them and had desired to multiply them upon the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein, till the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth, and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the herbs of the earth and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with them. And the babes of the children of Israel were upon the earth like the herb of the field, through Yahweh's compassion unto them. And when all the Egyptians saw this thing, they went forth each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plowshare, and they plowed it up as one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Israel. So the people increased, and they waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to suck or to seek for the babies of the children of Israel. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from his mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female child they left with its mother, and thus did the Egyptians to the Israelites all these days. But you see the protection that Almighty Yahweh placed upon those babies whose parents had to flee into the fields to deliver them for sake of having their babies spared from being drowned in the river. This is why this Passover is so awesomely important, because it highlights the historical precedent that Almighty Yahweh set as far as delivering his people. You think we going through some things today? You think we suffering hardships today with all of the inoculations and all of these other things that our babies are up against? You think we suffering conditions today with police brutality? Well, as King Shalomo said, there is nothing new under the sun. They try to kill our babies today in so many ways. Well, they tried to kill our babies in the Ancient of Days, especially in times of approaching deliverance. As the redemption got closer and closer for Israel, Shaitan's assault was always revved up and intensified, especially to seek out those males, seeking to slaughter the one who was to bring forth the deliverance. In Moshe's day, he was the one that was sought after, and all the other innocent males put to death. In Yeshua HaMashiach's day, he was the one who was sought after, because Shaitan's plan was to snuff both of them out, so as to cut off the name of Israel from being remembered, and so that the nation would be no more. But Yahweh said, not so. And he delivered his people on Abib the 14th, and he overthrew. He gave the Egyptians the same fate. If you pay attention closely, the very same fate in which the Egyptians sought to dish out to those Israelite males, Yahweh struck at their firstborn males, and then those that were remaining, drowned them in the sea. The same fate. What goes around comes around. Yahweh's word is not a game when he says, whatsoever man sows, that shall he also reap. You like to kill? Okay, cool. As day coming, you will be killed. It's not a game. And let's move on a little bit further. Let's go back here, leaving the book of Yashar. Let's jump on in here quickly to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 23, 23:10 speaks of Israel's Redeemer, especially those of the poor. Proverbs 23:10 says, remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is mighty, and he shall plead their cause with you. The world today, they get around, they oppress the fatherless, they exploit them, they take advantage of them, they do whatsoever evil it is that comes into their mind concerning not just the fatherless, but the widow, the poor, those that suffer injustices, all of those things, the working poor. You think you got a little bit of what have you because you may have a few dollars saved in your bank account, but the world, they take full advantage of you too, especially if you're not among the rich, the wealthy, and the elite. The world seeks to take full advantage of you, and they do so at their own will. But Yahweh says that their Redeemer, Yeshua HaMashiach, will plead their cause with you. So for every one of us you exploited, every one of us in which you've taken advantage of, every one of us in which you've lied to, or defrauded, or even murdered and put to death, there's a day coming where all of the wicked gonna have to give an account for every one of Yahweh's servants who they've wronged, who they've treated unjustly, who they've murdered, who they put to death, who they've lied to, who they deceived, and who they even so much as kept back from uttering the name of Almighty Yahweh. They gonna all have to stand before Israel's Redeemer as he pleads the cause of Israel. And let's jump on a little bit further. Let's leave the book of Proverbs. Let's go on in here into the book of Yeshaya. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 61. Isaiah 61, verse 1. The Ruach of Yahweh Elohim is upon me, because Yahweh has anointed me to preach tidings unto the meek. And he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty unto the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. So all of the things in which we grapple with now in modern day Egypt, Almighty Yahweh is going to send his son Yeshua HaMashiach a second time to grant us deliverance from all of those things. All of the things in which we fight with today: police brutality, the prison industry complex, the phenomenon of mass incarceration, all of the spiritual and the mental conditions that plague us and hold us down, be it depression, anxiety. I can't even think of all of the different disorders that society labels and throws upon people today, which are nothing more than spiritual conditions. But the clinicians and the physicians of this world, they refuse to acknowledge the spiritual aspect of life. So they give everything a scientific name, but it's all just scientifically derived names to describe spiritual conditions. But all of these things, Yeshua HaMashiach is coming to grant us all deliverance from. He says he's coming to bind up the brokenhearted, those who've lost loved ones, whether violently, tragically, or whether due to illnesses, house fires, accidents, sudden causes, natural causes, all of those things that cause people to suffer from a quote-unquote broken heart. Yeshua is coming to bind them up. The things shattered into pieces or what have you, you feel like you fell apart after this event or that event in life, Yeshua is going to be the one to pull us all back together, spiritually as well as physically. He's coming also to proclaim liberty to the captives, not just the brothers that's falsely accused in prison today, those that are locked away for crimes in which they did not do, but also those that are held captive by spiritual conditions that ravage their mind. Little children in this world who suffer from conditions that they had no power over, such as Down syndrome, epilepsy, and all of those different things, autism, and so on and so forth. Children who suffer from all of those things that Shaitan jumped on them and smote them with at birth. All of those things, Yeshua is coming to grant them deliverance from those things. Older people who were at one point in time who knew the Messiah, older people who walked this way of life, and even those who, in sincerity, did not know of Yahweh, but knew of Jesus Christ or God or all of the other things of the world, but in sincerity tried to strive for righteousness as close as possible. But in their later years, Shaitan struck at their minds with dementia and things of that nature. Yahweh is sending Yeshua HaMashiach to grant his people deliverance from all of those things. He's going to grant liberty to the captives and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. See, not every binding is physical. Not every binding is a home monitoring bracelet confining you to house arrest. Not every binding is a pair of handcuffs behind your back and your feet shackled together. Not every binding is a 10 to 25-year prison sentence. Some people being bound are bound by spiritual conditions. And some of these spiritual conditions have jumped on families and have become familiar spirits, claiming family members for generation after generation after generation. But Yeshua is coming to grant us deliverance from all of those things, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all they that mourn, all those that suffer, all those that have been mistreated and abused and disrespected and exploited in this society. There's a day coming where Yahweh is going to send his servant to execute vengeance, just as he executed vengeance upon ancient Egypt when he brought Israel out. Don't you dare be one of them Israelites that's caught thinking that all of this is just going to continue on as is. Now, don't you dare be one of them Israelites that's just caught thinking that one day the nation of Israel is just going to magically Wake up one day, just get everything together and just start nation building and just setting up temples and houses and communities and things of that nature and just magically overthrow their oppressor without Yeshua HaMashiach. Don't be one of them Hebrews thinking that nonsense. It's a damn shame if you are, but if you're not, don't be one of those Hebrews caught thinking that you're going to do all of this without Yeshua HaMashiach, because he is at the center of Israel's deliverance and redemption. And to appoint unto them that mourn into Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the ruach of heaviness. Look at this exchange here. All of these things that hold us down now, all of these things that weigh us down, all of these things that consume our time and our mind. God, we could take those things from us and replace them with things far better. Let me read that again. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes. You know the ritual. You were mourning, you were in sorrow, you were pensive. You put those ashes upon your head to signify the state of mourning in which you were in. This society today, they drag you through the mud and try to reduce you to nothing but ashes. But in exchange for that, Yahweh says beauty. The oil of joy for mourning. So all of the crying, the tears, and all of those things, Revelation talks about a time when Yahweh's going to wipe away all tears from their eyes. The garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. The spirit of heaviness, depression, sadness, anxiety, sorrow, heartache, all of those different things. Yahweh's going to take them from us and swap it out with the garment of praise. And we're not going to praise ourselves. We're going to praise Almighty Yahweh, that they may be called trees of righteousness, that which was planted of Yahweh, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old waste places, and they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations, and strangers shall stand and feed your flocks. And the sons of the aliens shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. So I know with all of the oppression that we go through and endure in this society, there's a certain group of people in this earth, they make it particularly hard to love them. They make it particularly hard to not wish that they were ridden from the earth. They make it hard to not sit back and yearn for their complete and utter extermination from this earth so that the world may have peace. But we got to be cool harboring those feelings toward those people. And the reason we got to be cool harboring those feelings toward those people, because if our wishes to have those people removed from this earth were to be carried out and executed, who gonna build up your waste places? The people who tore down your former desolate, the people who tore down your habitation and made them desolate. Who's gonna build those things up if you rid the earth of all of them right now? If you get rid of all of them, so much so that they wipe completely from existence, who gonna be your plowman? Who gonna come back when your land is restored unto you? Who gonna be your servants? Who gonna be your handmaids? Somebody has to fulfill the prophecy in scripture that says they will come with your daughters in their arms, with your sons in their arms and your daughters upon their shoulders. Somebody got to bring your babies back to you. Somebody has to be there to cater unto your babies. Somebody has to be there to till your land as Yahweh restores unto you that which the nations took away from you. Now let's jump back in here into the book of Jasher. Let's go on in here into Jasher chapter 80 momentarily. Bear with me, everybody. So this is what the Pesach all points to. These times of Israel's restoration. It's a particular point that I'm trying to make, Israel. Bear with me. The book of Jasher, chapter 80. I'm going to start here at verse 41. This is after Yahweh smote the land of Egypt with the darkness. And they talked about how the darkness was 3 days. And talked about how the darkness was so intense and so fierce that when the darkness hit, whatever a person was doing, they couldn't even so much as see their hand or behold their hand in front of their face. So much so that if a person was walking, they stopped and they sat and remained where they were until the darkness passed over. It was just that intense. And it goes on further and it says, and the darkness was very great in Egypt for 3 days, and any person who was standing when the darkness came and remained standing in his place, and he that was sitting remained sitting, and he that was lying continued lying on the same state, and he that was walking remained sitting upon the ground in the same spot. And this thing happened to all the Egyptians until the darkness had passed away. And the days of the darkness passed away. And Yahweh sent Moshe and Aaron to the children of Israel, saying, celebrate your feast and make your Passover. For behold, I will come in the midst of the night amongst all the Egyptians, and I will smite their firstborn, and the firstborn of a man to the firstborn of a beast. And when I see your Passover, I will pass over you. And the children of Israel did so according to all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe and Aaron. And thus they did in that night. And it came to pass in the middle of the night that Yahweh went forth in the midst of Egypt and smote all the firstborn of Egypt, from the firstborn of man to the firstborn of beast. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, and he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry throughout Egypt in that night, for there was not a house in which there was not a corpse. You tell me this ain't a memorial that needs all respect and all honor given unto it. America has their Independence Day celebrations. They'll light all kinds of fireworks and things of that nature. They'll have all kinds of drunken revelry and all sorts of festivities or what have you to celebrate their supposed independence. But yet at the same time, if you pay attention to the United States of America and its relationship with the country in which they supposedly fought for independence from, they still stand in deference to them to this very day. Pay close attention to them, but yet they'll celebrate their independence. But this night of independence for Israel, a celebration like none other. This was true deliverance. This was true redemption. This was the night in which this was truly the birth of a nation. Not that D.W. Griffith film, not the Nate Parker film, but this was truly the birth of a nation on Abib the 14th. Yahweh called his son Israel out of Egypt and gave him a land plentiful and full of abundance. But the world there bypassed this. Some of Israel will even forget that. Oh, you ain't got to keep that today. We in captivity. We ain't in the land. We don't have to keep that today. But Yahweh said by the mouth of his servant Moshe that it was to be kept in all your dwellings throughout all your generations. We still here reproducing. We still, with all of the different things that the scripture commands us to do, all of the commandments that was given to us, we get that one right, if nothing else. We be fruitful, we be multiplying now. We do that, if nothing else. But yet suddenly, the command to keep the feast in all your dwellings throughout all your generations, suddenly we want to play hopscotch and skip over that. Such a great, important, monumental occasion, but we want to bypass that one because we're not in the land today. Also, the likeness of the firstborn of Egypt, which was carved in the walls of their houses, were destroyed and fell to the ground. See how serious that was? Pictures, images, and all of those different things, hieroglyphics, and all those different things, the monuments that was made in honor of the firstborn. Now he knocked all of that stuff down, struck the literal firstborn from man and beast, images and things of that nature, artifacts made honoring them firstborn. Now he even smoked them, knocked them down. That's serious. Also, the likeness of the firstborn of Egypt, which was carved in the walls of their houses, were destroyed and fell to the ground. Even the bones of their firstborn who had died before this, and whom they had buried in their houses, were raked up by the dogs of Egypt on that night, and dragged before the Egyptians and cast before them. See how he wasn't playing. Now he even struck at the firstborn that had already died, had the dogs dig in the dirt, pull the bones up and bring them forward to the owners. That's serious. See, this is why this message is titled Passover, a memorial like no other. See, nations sit back today. You see nations, they'll do it. Certain events will happen. One nation might bomb another nation, and then suddenly all out war breaks out or what have you. Like another date that's ingrained in people's memory is December 7th, 1940. I believe it was 43 or 41, but the day in which the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I wasn't paying that much attention in school, but I forgot that date. I might have been asleep or something, but the particular day in which the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, December 7th, America got hot about it. They went on and they dropped the bombs from Nagasaki and Hiroshima, so much so that the devastation is still felt 70 some odd years later, to the point that nothing grows in them spots where those bombs detonated and were dropped. And the nations today, they do that. The brothers in the street will do that. Somebody from this corner could get killed, and the whole community love them so much that they feel like, all right, cool. They killed him. We're going to have a funeral. And then after that, we're going to slide over there and we're going to tear the fur off of everybody over there. And Baltimore even did it here when the police killed young brother Freddie Gray. Baltimore, the youth sat back. It was almost like it was planned or coordinated. They sat back. They had little minor skirmishes, and they lightly tore certain stuff up in downtown Baltimore on one Shabbat, but they waited. They chilled out that Sunday. The brother's funeral was that Monday. They put the body in the ground. After the body was taken and put in the ground, the city went up in flames. The youth wasn't playing, and they took it to the police, so much so they even punched the commissioner in the face. And brothers, they sit back, they do that in the street, they ride for one another. But Yahweh, he wasn't playing about his firstborn. Nations sat back. They plotted to destroy Israel. They threw the babies in the sea. They put others in the walls. They tore up families and homes, took children from mothers. Yahweh was not playing. He rode through Egypt. He slid, as they say in the street today. That's what the young people call it. When they go off and do something on behalf of a deceased loved one, well, we're going to slide on them. Yahweh slid on ancient Egypt, so much so he allowed the dogs to go and dig up the bodies, the bones of those who had already died long before the plague, those who was long dead and buried before all of this even took place. Yahweh allowed the dogs to go dig up in the dirt, pull the bones out in the remains, and bring it forth to those whose houses they was buried in. That's serious. Tell me Yahweh ain't playing with it. And all the families of Egypt, they all saw this evil which had suddenly come upon them. And all the Egyptians cried out with a loud voice. And all the families of Egypt wept upon that night, each man for his son, and each man for his daughter, being the firstborn. And the tumult of Egypt was heard at a distance on that night. See, Yahweh was not playing. And the people today get around and they take this memorial as a joke. You think Almighty Yahweh is going to let the wicked and all of the evil in which they've done to his baby today, you think that he's going to let that continue on and he's going to let it go unchecked? You think he's going to let that slide? And then we go on further in the same chapter of Yeshua. Goes on further. And Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, approached Moshe and Aaron and some of the children of Israel who were with them in that place. And he prayed to them, saying, rise up, take your brethren, all the children of Israel who are in the land, with their sheep and their oxen, and all belonging to them, and they shall leave nothing remaining. Only pray for me to Yahweh your Elohim. See, now he want them out of there. Now he realized Yahweh ain't to be played with. Now he recognizes Almighty Yahweh. And he realized, oh, okay, look, I want all of y'all gone. I don't even want none of your stuff here. Get everything out. You take all your brethren, all your family, your kinfolk, their oxen, their sheep, their herd, everything that belongs to them. Take it all. Get out and pray to Yahweh for me when you leave. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, behold, though you are your mother's firstborn, yet fear not, for you will not die. For Yahweh has commanded that you should live in order to show you his great might and strong and outstretched arm. And Pharaoh ordered the children of Israel to be sent away, and all the Egyptians strengthened themselves to send them, for they said, we're all perishing. And all the Egyptians sent the Israelites forth with great riches, sheep and oxen, and precious things, according to the oath of Yahweh between him and our father Abraham. And the children of Israel delayed going forth at night. And when the Egyptians came to them to bring them out, they said to them, are we thieves that we should go forth out at night? And the children of Israel asked of the Egyptians vessels of silver and vessels of gold and garments. And the children of Israel stripped the Egyptians. And Moshe hastened and rose up and went to the river of Egypt and brought up from thence the coffin of Joseph and took it with him. And the children of Israel also brought up each man his father's coffin with him, and each man the coffin of his tribe. See, now Pharaoh dies later as a result of Israel leaving and him getting infuriated. Look up, realize, oh man, Yahweh wasn't playing with us. Oh, wow, he destroyed. Boy, all right, okay. Look, they gotta go. Get them out of here. But then with the council of the rest of the nation, hey, look, we letting the servants go. We get rid of the slaves. Who gonna pour the water? Who gonna fix the breakfast? Who gonna build the rest of this house? No, we gotta get them back. Go get them. Make them come back. So then in turn, Pharaoh rises up with the nation. As the book of Jasher says, and we pull it out if it be Yahweh's will later on in the feast. Book of Jasher describes it as an army of 10,000 thousands. That's the original million-man march, if you do the math. They wasn't playing. They wanted their servants back. But yet at the same time, Almighty Yahweh was determined that he was not going to keep Israel in Egypt in bondage and in servitude. And he incensed Pharaoh in such a way that Pharaoh's heart was so enraged at what had happened that he couldn't take the embarrassment of having his nation smitten on so many occasions, and the very cause for the smiting and the judgment to just up and leave. So he was determined to go and get him and bring him back, even at his own detriment. See how Shaitan works? When Shaitan gets in an individual, Shaitan will drive that individual to go forward, even if it's unto their own demise. And then he'll jump out the vessel like the young folks today where they steal cars and they joyride and then they crash. But then they jump out of the car and they get on along and they move on and run until they're apprehended by the police. But the people that they collided with suffering from all kinds of injuries. That's how Shaitan operates. He jump on a vessel. Hey, I like this one. Yeah, okay, this is world ruler here. All right, this new. All right, cool. I'm going to stretch on out of him. I'm going to do some great things in him. But then, as soon as judgment comes, Shaitan jumps out the vessel. Israel, at this time of the year, don't you let Shaitan jump in your vessel. Don't you let Shaitan treat your vessel like a Lexus LS 460 or a new luxury car that he's stealing for the day. Don't let Shaitan jump on you and cause you to do something that jeopardize your salvation at this time of the year. But let's go here briefly to the book of Tehillim. Let's go to Psalm chapter 40. Yeshua HaMashiach speaking through the psalmist of Israel. Yeshua HaMashiach speaking through King David futuristically about his own advent to the earth. It says here in Tehillim 40 and 6, many, O Yahweh, are your wonderful, I'm starting 40 and 5, I'm sorry. Many, O Yahweh, my Elohim, are your wonderful works which you've done, and the thoughts which are toward us. They cannot be reckoned up in order unto you. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. You sit back now. This is Yeshua HaMashiach speaking through King David about all of the mighty, wonderful works that Yahweh has wrought through the earth. And he said that they couldn't even be numbered if you were to try to tally them all up. This memorial service in honor of Yahweh's deliverance of Israel, as well as in honor of Yeshua HaMashiach's sacrifice. You go to funerals today in the world and you'll see the most elaborate obituaries. Years ago, the old people, they might have gave you a picture of the deceased on the front, couple pictures on the interior, and a layout of the deceased life and the date and the time in which they passed and a brief story of them and everything. But nowadays, the young folks, I'll give them credit on that. They lay out their loved ones with some elaborate obituaries. They put all that stuff together and they tell them stories of what they did, the whole duration of their life. But if you were to do this same thing with Yeshua HaMashiach, his memorial, if you were to do an obituary for him and lay out all of the works in which Yahweh allowed him to do in his short 33 years in this earth, the world couldn't even contain all the books of the things in which he did. But going further, sacrifice and offering you didst not desire. My ears have you opened. Burnt offering and sin offering have you not required. But then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book as it is written of me. I delight to do your will, O Yahweh. Yes, your law is within my heart. I've preached righteousness in the great congregation. Lo, I have not refrained my lips, O Yahweh. You know, I have not hid your righteousness within my heart. I have declared your faithfulness and your salvation, and I have not concealed your loving kindness and your truth from the great congregation. Yeshua did that. He preached Yahweh's word unto the great congregation, all of Israel, and sent his apostles to do so and teach that word unto the world. Take it to the nations. Withhold not thou your tender mercies from me, O Yahweh, and let your joy and your loving kindness and your truth continually preserve me. And that's what it's doing for us today. Almighty Yahweh is preserving us as a nation. As the world fights to rid the earth of us, so they think, and wipe us out, Almighty Yahweh in his loving kindness, he's still preserving us. But yet when it comes around to this memorial, this Pesach, this Passover, we want to treat it as if it's nothing at all. We want to treat it as if it's just a simple walk in the park, or as if it's just a simple Tuesday morning on the job and we don't feel like going in, so we pick up the phone and call out. But no, this is a memorial that is to be honored and to be kept through all our generations with utmost sincerity and fervor, because of the severity behind it and all of the things that are tied to it and attached to it. Let's go to the book of Yeshaya. I'm going to soon conclude, Israel. Let's go to the book of Yeshaya, chapter 66. Can't stress this enough about the feast of Almighty Yahweh, how all of Yahweh's feasts point to the kingdom. Each and every one of them. They point to Israel's restoration in this earth. Going further, it says, for thus saith Yahweh, for behold, I will extend shalom to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then shall ye suck, you shall be borne upon her sides, and be dandled upon her knee. As one whom his mother comforts, so will I comfort you, and you shall be comforted in Yerushalayim. That's serious. All of the things in which we go through in this world, all of the things that are uncomfortable to us, all of the things that discomfort us, Almighty Yahweh is going to bring all of those things to an end. And he is going to comfort us in the same manner in which he had his ministering angels comfort those babies birthed in those fields and left alone in the field, in the wilderness of ancient Egypt. Almighty Yahweh is going to do such unto us. And when you shall see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like an herb. And the hand of Yahweh shall be known toward his servants, and his indignation toward his enemies. And did we not see that executed in Exodus chapter 12 and all of the other writings of the scripture when Yahweh delivered Israel from ancient Egypt on Abib the 14th? They saw that. They saw Yahweh's hand lifted up in righteousness toward his servants, but yet in indignation towards his enemies. He ready to strike the enemies. And if he thought he smote ancient Egypt in the days of old, the wicked who trouble us and who plague the world today, man, if they thought what Yahweh did to ancient Egypt was something, man, the greatest screenwriters and executive producers in Hollywood, if you put them all together and you gave them a Bill Gates budget, they couldn't put together a film awesome enough to show you the judgment and the wrath that Yahweh has in store. You could put them all together. Martin Scorsese, Tyler Perry, Brian De Palma, all of them. With Bill Gates' budget, with his net worth as their budget, they couldn't put together a film to show you the levels of devastation, destruction, and punishment and judgment that the wicked have stored up for them. They couldn't depict it well enough to show you what's coming. But this memorial, this Pesach, is a reminder of the fact that our Elohim is a jealous Elohim. He's a consuming fire, and he is a man of war. And on the behalf of his people, if you must say it, he has no problem coming to the nations and kicking their ass on the behalf of his people. See, the nations want you to just look at Yahweh as just this loving Elohim who just loves everybody. He's not going to destroy anybody. He's going to accept everybody. But then suddenly, All that love goes out the window when it's their family that's inconvenienced. Suddenly, all of the love goes out the window when one of their nieces is raped and abused. Suddenly, they want prosecution and persecution for that pedophile that raped their niece. When it's their sister or their brother that's killed, suddenly, all that he loves everybody, that stuff goes out the window now that it's one of their family members that everybody's got to gather around to have a memorial for. And it does not matter in their eyes how their family member lived. They want their family member sent off in the greatest elaborate manner possible. They will go broke trying to send them off. Even if he was just a drunk and a dope fiend in his older years, and he was a murderer and a thief in his younger years, they don't care. Break the bank. Send Pookie off nicely. Send Man off fabulously. Even if Man was breaking in somebody's house and got gunned down in the process. Spend everything on the casket. Make the obituary 17 pages, even though Man only lived 16 years. Send him off nicely. And they'll do it and they don't care. But when it comes down to you talking about the judgment that Almighty Yahweh has in store for Israel's adversaries, suddenly they want to quiet you. No, I don't see why he would do that. He loves everybody. He is forgiving. But then as soon as you look at them and as soon as you come at them with scripture, suddenly they don't want to talk to you anymore. Suddenly you're wrong. Suddenly, as soon as you start talking about how there are passages of scripture in the book where Yahweh answered the prayers of his patriarchs when they asked him things like, let their adversaries be cast into hell alive. Suddenly they don't want to talk to you about things like that. But all of those things are written in the book. In Israel, at this time of the year, as your adversaries rise up against you, if they haven't risen up against you already, you do have permission to pray against them and lift up cries and prayers against them, because don't you think for 1 minute that Yahweh's ears were only able to hear the groanings of Israel in the days of old? Don't you think for 1 minute that Yahweh's ears now have wax in them and he can't hear your groanings today? The scripture tells us in one place that the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, makes intercession for us by way of groanings that cannot even be uttered. Sometimes you go through things in this life, you don't even have the words to express what you're going through or what you need in order to be brought through. But that Ruach being upon you in the midst of your groanings and your crying and trying to fight back tears makes its way up to Yahweh's ears. So don't be caught thinking that at this time of the year that you don't have a right to pray against your adversaries, because you better know for sure that just as Almighty Yahweh was listening in the days of old when he delivered ancient Israel, he's listening now. Make your prayers known and make your prayers heard unto Almighty Yahweh. You want a prayer? Here's one for you. Tehillim 40 and 12, and I'm gonna conclude after this. For innumerable evils have compassed me about. Mine iniquities have taken hold upon me, so that I'm not able to look up. They're more than the hairs of my head. Therefore my heart faileth. See, this is the time frame when you get to reflect upon all of the things in which you've done, as you remove all of the leavening from your house. And also, not just the bread, the cakes, and the pies, but also that spiritual leaven. All of those different things that may have been done wrong by us before Almighty Yahweh. This is that time now where we get to reflect upon all of those iniquities. And while we purge out the natural leaven, pray and ask Almighty Yahweh to rid us of all of the spiritual leavening and the evil that's unacceptable before him as well. Be pleased, O Yahweh, to deliver me. O Yahweh, make haste to help me. Let them be ashamed and confounded together that seek after my soul to destroy it. Just as ancient Egypt sought to destroy Israel, particularly those males, and they sought counsel and they had all kinds of ideas and plots as to how to go about ridding the earth of Israel and getting the Hebrews out of the earth. You don't think for 1 second they ain't doing that today? And just as they do that, you pray and you ask Almighty Yahweh. Let them be ashamed and confounded together to seek after my soul to destroy it. Let them be driven backward and put to shame that wish me evil. People won't give you the days off on the job out of spite just because. Lift up a cry against them. You ask Almighty Yahweh, shake the hell out of them. The whole time in which they seek to inconvenience you. Let them be desolate for a reward of their shame. So they hate you, they despise you. As payback and compensation, desolate them, bring them to nothing. Reduce them to absolutely nothing. Embarrass them. And them that say, aha, Let all those that seek you rejoice and be glad in you. And let such as love your salvation or that love your Yeshua say continually, Yahweh be magnified. But I am poor and needy, yet Yahweh thinks upon me. You are my help and my deliverer. Make no tarrying, O my Elohim, and believe of a surety that Almighty Yahweh is not going to be tarrying and deliberating and stopping off along the way to come and deliver Israel. He ain't going to be in the heavens on his way to this earth in the personage of Yahshua. Hold up. I'm coming to save him. You know, I had to stop over here. I had to go to 7-Eleven, get this Slurpee real quick. You know, I got kind of thirsty on the way, but I'm coming, Israel. Hold up. This is my partner over here. Let me holler at Raphael real quick. I'm coming, y'all. I'm gonna be there. Oh, we gonna stop to Chipotle real fast. We coming down. No, Yahweh's gonna make no tarrying to deliver Israel. Your redemption is on the way, and the Pesach is symbolic of that impending redemption for Israel, as well as impending judgment and destruction for those of the world who not only disrespect Israel, but show their hatred toward Yeshua HaMashiach as well as Almighty Yahweh. Dear family, so on that note that I conclude this message, and I simply ask that we all rise as we close out in prayer. Almighty Yahweh, we come to you ever so humbly as the body of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. We ask of you to please look down from your heavenly throne upon all of us whatsoever we scatter throughout the world. We ask that as we gather and prepare to keep the Pesach and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we ask that as Shaitan's children fight against us, we ask that you fight against them on our behalf, Abba Yahweh. We ask that you crush and destroy everything that would seek to subvert and distract Israel at this most solemn time of the year. We ask that you remove and destroy all manner of hindrances and all manner of obstructions to Israel keeping the feast, Father Yahweh. We ask that you shift the focus of our mind from those things in which we cannot eat and things in which we cannot consume at this time of the year to the things in your word in which we need to consume in order to obtain the salvation of our soul, Father Yahweh. We ask that you shift our focus from fleshly and bodily gratification with natural food to the things of the spiritual, Father Yahweh, that satisfy our soul and gives us the salvation in which we yearn after. And we ask of you also that you fill our vessels with the Ruach HaKodesh, Abba Yahweh, and fill us with a mind to seek after you and to do your will. Not just one day or not just 1 week or 1 year, but from now until the moment in which you call our earthly vessels home unto you, Father Yahweh. And we beg of you also that you please remember those of the world who do not know you at this very hour, but deal kindly with your people, so that in the day and the season in which you see fit, it be your will to open their eyes to the marvelous light that is your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, who came to bring salvation to the world in your almighty name. Father Yahweh, these things we ask that you baruch us ever so humbly with. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we pray. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, dear family. Look forward to being here with you all tomorrow, as well as for the duration of this week of unleavened bread this upcoming. Shabbat shalom.